What's up and welcome back. Another week in the FCL and First Class fans. I am the Elk, as always, happy to bring you all the news, all the matches, and everything that's going on in the First Class League this week. We've got a great show coming your way as we're going to be discussing some big matches and some big news. It's Warfare coming on. What matches were announced and what can we expect to see at that big showcase for the end of the year? We will talk about that one. And perhaps we'll be given a few witticisms as we're joined by a wonderful special guest. We're going to get to that in a few moments as well. And we're breaking down all the matches that happened this week. You know it. We've got what turned out to be a number one contenders match, James Shimo versus Brennen Marr. And of course, the return of Kofi Outlaw, 2-2, facing off against Andres Gallego in the very first 5-match for both of these players. The first players to reach that wonderful number. It's a great week. It's great to have you here with us. And now let's get right on into it and bring in my co-host and our very special guest as we discuss everything that happened this week in the FCL. And welcome back, fans. We have, as you can see, a wonderful special guest with us here today on the show. Let's go right ahead and introduce him first. Welcome. We have, that's right, he is a member of the Dungeon. Some say maybe even practically the leader of the Dungeon at this point. He is a Star Wars and Teams competitor. He is an editor. He might even be a Redditor. I have no idea, but what I do know is he is super entertaining. He's right here with us to break down everything FCL, and he is a first-class fan just like you. Welcome the wonderful Adam Witt.
Hello, gang. Hello, I'm excited to talk about this week in the FCL, and I'm told because of your title of your show, I've come to the right place.
Absolutely.
Well, I certainly hope so, yes. If not, then we're doing something wrong, but we do it every weekend.
Your show wrong.
And as we always do, we are joined by some of my regular co-hosts. Ryan could not unfortunately join us today, but we are joined by our very own stats man. I've called him a mini Frank Janish, and I'm sure some of you have called him much nicer things. It is Keith Kilduff. Keith, how are you?
Very good. And listen, after this week, I think it's fair to say, as an Avenger once said in Infinity War, we're in the end game now.
We are moving down to the end of the season, and I, for one, am pumped about all the action and all the great matches, not only that we're seeing now, but that we're going to see in the upcoming weeks. Someone else who's excited about all of that action, of course, our very own super producer, the man who brought the Avengers together. You can call him Nick Fury. He is Chris Barnes, our super editor and our producer.
Yeah, it's great to be back on again with you guys, and it was another good week. Just looking forward to getting to the home stretch of the season now, really.
Well, it should be a wonderful home stretch. We've got some big matches coming up. Of course, we are going to get into all of that as we discuss the news that happened this week in the FCL. We're going to get some opinions ready from each of our panelists. And, of course, we're going to see if there's some wit coming our way from you, Adam. Let's go ahead and jump right on in and talk about those pieces of news that we have for you. Number one, as always, we have something related to the MTS. We like to talk about our wonderful competitors as they move up, and we've talked a lot about the first ever FCL champion, Nick Harley. Nick Harley with Chaos Theory, an impressive performance. Nick Harley and Jacoby Bancroft lost in overtime to Deception, and I've got to say congratulations to him. Get some thoughts from all of you, and as well put in real quickly, losing to Deception in overtime means you're a damn good movie trivia player. Look at the team across from you. What a match by them. Keith, did you check this one out, and what did you think of it?
It's an absolutely heartbreaking loss for Nick and Jacoby. They came in here, I'd say, if 10% of the audience thought they had a chance, maybe that's the best. But I guess, like, to go that deep against a team of that stature, it just goes to show how good Nick and Jacoby is. And I suppose, Adam, and I don't mean to bring up your career in this kind of way, but you can almost get over with the audience by way of a loss sometimes. And hopefully this is what kind of keeps Nick and Jacoby in the roster for next season.
Hey, own it. They remind me of a young Adam Witt playing a young Thomas Harper. And did anyone think that Adam Witt would beat Thomas Harper? Of course not. But Did anybody think he would take him? I would take Thomas Harper to his 5. Probably not as well. So that's pretty cool. I actually didn't see that match. I watched the FCL matches to prepare for the show, but I forgot that an FCL veteran was making that's the team's debut, right, against Deception. Oh my gosh! I mean, that's
the second or third match for Chaos Theory, I believe.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. All right. Well,
there's a lot of matches, Adam. To be fair,
there's true. You got the FCL and the MTS to keep track of.
Yes. No, it's crazy. It's burgeoning. But that is pretty cool against Deception. Wow. That's going to that's a reputation maker right there. You don't have to win that match. You just have to be entertaining and have the audience on your side, as I've proven. But you got to own it. You got to say, hey, you got to push what you did well, and then push your characters, and then go, hey, aren't we more entertaining than them? Sure, we lost, but aren't we more entertaining than them? Are you not entertained?
Well, as the first class fans know, of course, Nick Harley is an incredibly entertaining individual. Real quick, Chris, we're going to jump on over to you. Did you get a chance to check out this matchup? What do you think about Chaos Theory versus Deception?
I think it was a fantastic match. I watched it, and it was a surprise. Nick going Chaos Theory going as far as they did into overtime, and it was just heartbreaking that they got that far, but they just didn't quite get it over the line. But I can't really say much more than what Keith and Adam have already said, really. So just well done to them, and let's hope they carry on into next season.
That's the Stars, right? They're on the Stars.
That is correct. They are on the Stars.
Poor Stars.
Can't catch a break.
Rough season.
Rough year for the Stars. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a reminder. I started off the season cheering for the Stars, but Adam has reminded me, of course, that there's some other factions, his own included, doing a little bit better than they are in the MTS right now. That's all, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of people who are doing a little bit better, how about we talk about an upcoming match that has now been announced in the FCL? Brad Gilmore has agreed. It has been signed on the dotted line. That's right. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a flying cow, and he will be facing off against the dynasty himself, David Campbell versus the flying cow in singles at FCL29. Let's get some thoughts on this one. Chris, let's start with you. What do you think about the flying cow versus Campbell?
Well, it's an exciting match, isn't it? There's obviously some beef between them, no pun intended. So it's
let
just
them fly.
No, I'm looking forward to it. We'll talk about it a bit more in the next week's segment towards the end of the show, anyway.
Absolutely, we will bring that up. But quick first thoughts. Keith, this match has been put together. I know you are a fan of at least one of these competitors. What do you think? Is this going to be a good one?
It
A
should
real
be.
barn burner?
Another farm joke, Andrew. Another farm joke. I think, listen, it's a fun promo by David. Obviously, he has taken, he's absorbed Cat's loss in an IG and has decided that, listen, he wants to fire back at the cow. As Chris said, I'm sure we'll break it down in greater detail later on in the show. But listen, fun promo. Brad agrees. Sign it up. Let's go.
Absolutely. And Adam, you have been watching the FCL. No doubt you got your eye on some of these young competitors. Do you think that these are competitors to watch? We've got David Campbell, obviously came in with a lot of hype, and the Flying Cow, who has been very impressive so far in all the matches that he's had, definitely showing some knowledge. This should be a good one.
Oh yeah, this would be a great one. I mean, David Campbell's already an FCL legend, and the Flying Cow flew in out of nowhere. And has quickly become a fan favorite, as you might call him. But I think he's got half of what the Schmoedown is all about, which is character and craziness. This used to be the complete stock and trade before really knowing movie trivia actually took over. Surprisingly caught up to being a character just after the point where I entered. Now trivia is more important, but the FCL has not forgotten that character is extremely important, and the Flying Cow is insane. I mean, it's I don't know where's this guy come from? How's he get this character? So that's a lot of fun. And then Campbell has been there since the very beginning. He's an FCL legend. So this is really fun. It's really fun for a new guy like the Cow to come in and rise up the ranks. And what's Campbell's record right now?
He is 2-2.
2-2. Yes, he's had a
now
rough go.
Keep in mind he's been in a couple of very, very high profile matches. His losses are against strong competitors as far as the FCL is concerned.
Yeah. So this is gonna be a pretty good match. I mean, I'd probably say my bet would be on Campbell, He's going to be a little more confident than Cal. Cal's still kind of getting into things a little bit, but yeah, he's good.
All right. Well, we've got some thoughts. That's right. Will he make him move aside, or will it be dynastic
He'll
dominance
kowtow to
for
no one.
David
Sorry, I
Campbell?
forgot to throw some. I forgot to throw some.
No kowtowing in that particular matchup, but it's not the only matchup being announced.
I don't want to
in the
milk this
FCL.
joke, but I just wanted to get one in there.
God.
Oh man, I would love to be able to drop another one on you, but unfortunately, it seems like I'm fresh out. Adam Witt, you have outdone me, and I am pleased about it. Let's go ahead and talk about another great matchup coming up in the FCL. This one, Keith, we've been begging for this one for a while. You and I have talked about it. Chris has talked about it. Ryan's talked about it. We've all talked about it over and over and over. When is it going to happen? When are they going to face off against each other? It's finally happening. Not just yet, but very soon. You will be seeing the Civil War kick off as Chris Adams and Robert Adams face off against each other. The brothers are divided. Who will come out with the victory? This is a match we have been looking forward to for a while. Adam, any thoughts on the Adams Civil War?
This is so great. This is a story that writes itself. I mean, ever since these two, made their premiere in the FCL, which is a great place for them. Great for them to play their characters and to bounce off of each other and be in a lot of matches together, like, or in some way, whether it's promos or, jumping in at the end of the match or whatever. So we've been asking this since the beginning. It's like Molly Damon and Alex Damon. It's like, when are they going to play? This is great. We've been, and it's really great for the FCL, a great home for the Adamses to have this whole plot line to build up to this. And I mean, it's like they call the FCL a developmental league, but developing plot lines and being a part and jumping into other people's plot lines and allegiances and stuff. It's like, it's not just the trivia that you can see people get better and better at, but it's like, yeah, they're the developmental league for creating plot lines exactly like this one that's written on the wins. You're like, when are these two going to play? And they build it up nicely. And here we are getting to the end of the season, and here they go. So this would be pretty exciting.
Absolutely will be exciting. Chris, we've got the Civil War going on, and we've got both of the brothers finally ready to go toe-to-toe. This has been brewing from the very earliest days of the FCO. One might say this is the longest build-up we've had for a match so far. What do you think is going to happen? And I'm going to do it, Chris. I'm going to make you try to jump down off of that fence, and I'm going to ask for a prediction when I come to you. Which of the Adams will take it down?
It has been a long time coming. I think I put a post out on our Twitter probably not long after they were first announced in the league in general. I thought I can see that coming up some point down the line. I could see, it just makes sense. Two brothers at war. It's just a great way to go. A great story beats to have. As far as who's going to take it, I don't like to leave my fence, so I'm not going to. But I don't know, honestly. I think Robert's the stronger player, but the gentleman is great. So, and he feels hard done by, and he wants it. So you never know what a man. I don't want to call him a desperate man, but a man, with that much chip on his shoulder, feeling he was wronged, can get himself over the line, hopefully.
Keith, it began when we had all of these fights between the brothers. It began with the gentleman stealing a matchup from his own brother, and it ended very recently with Chris Adams taking off his sunglasses to reveal his regular glasses and saying, "Is this a mistake?" Heck no, it's not a mistake. The Adams will face off, and I'm sure from you we'll get a slightly more confident prediction on this one.
I think, listen, first and foremost, PLD laid down the law, and it had to be done to these two. Chris more so than Robert. But I think, listen, breaking this down roughly off the top of my head, Robert has been the better competitor. Sorry, I think Robert's been the better competitor of the two. I think that's fair to say. Chris is going to be dangerous because he's probably going to come into this thinking that he's got nothing to lose. But ultimately, they both have a lot to lose because the loser of this is going to be 1-3. Simple as. And you do not want to be going into season 2 of the FCL 1-3 chasing matches. And listen, Chris could be 0-3 as it is. He's not. I have Robert as probably like a 60-40 favourite. But listen, my opinions could change this time next week when we break it down again.
Well, it should be an exciting matchup either way. Brother versus brother. It is going to go down at FCL 30, and we are very excited for that one. And we'll continue our news with one final piece as we get a bonanza of match announcements today, or at the very least of announcements for matches that will be happening, because we have finally gotten the word from on high. We knew this was coming. We've been waiting for it for a long time, but the end of the season Warfare has been announced. FCL Warfare. It's going to be the big matchups, the pay-per-view event, if you will, the special capper to the season. We're going to have 4 matches coming at us in total. 2 will be titles matches. We already are going to know by the end of this week in the FCL exactly who's going to be in the Star Wars title match, potentially, if that is the one to be announced. But we know there's going to be a number 1 contenders match in singles, as well as those 2 title matches. And we also got a little tease for this. I'm sure this is something that's going to come up at Warfare, but Brad talking on the phone to somebody, we assume it's Booker T, and saying, we've got a solution for the Flirt and Fuss. This is where all the storylines come to a head. This is where all the big matches get paid off. I am looking so forward to Warfare, and I will open it up to anybody who's got thoughts. Please, FCL Warfare, what are you guys thinking?
Adam, please.
Yeah. I mean, it's just great that the storylines have progressed the way they have this season. The Booker T thing, the Flirt and Flouse thing, that can't be what you're assuming at the beginning of a season. You have all these curveballs that come in, like Harley going to the MTS and right after winning the championship. I mean, how do you solve that? That was an entire conversation in the chat, and they said, we got a solution, and you never realized that was what the solution was going to be. I think everybody thought, oh, they'll put it immediately into another match or something and pass the belt on. But you just can't ask for a better plot line than Harley wins it, Harley vacates the FCL, then wins the championship. Then Flirt and Flouse takes it over. So that half this season has been Flirt and Flouse with the belt, or half of the amount of season with the belt. That's just, and again, the developmental league thing, if the FCL is like, look how far it's come. Like, what a great storyline. Nobody wants Flirt and Flouse to have the belt. Of course. I mean, he's a perfect villain. You know, it's like the Iron Sheik having the belt. It's like, no, someone's got to take that off of that guy. So this is what a perfect way to end the season. Very exciting, and that's in Warfare is going to be this Flirt and Flouse match. Do we know who he's playing?
No, hasn't been decided yet, and I think that's kind of the call from Booker to Brad to kind of figure out what exactly it's going to be. We don't know yet. I think, listen, to jump off what you're saying, Adam, it's great that we're getting an end of season. Everything's going to tie up, but we're going to get a few little teases for season 2. No doubt, a few little nibbles here and there. I'm excited to see what the number 1 contenders match is, because obviously that'll help to kind of shape what the singles title is. As we're going to kind of talk later, there's a nice little kind of bottleneck of players in the singles division. We obviously got the Star Wars title on the match, then this TBC match. Brad made a little note in the Schmoedown rundown last night about a winner or a loser goes home bye-bye match potentially. So I'd be curious to see a little bit more storyline. Is not going to harm things in this big event. But CB, how the hell are we going to break down 4 matches in one night?
Oh, I know it's going to be fun. It looks like we're going to have to probably split the duty after take 2. You can take 2, and obviously Andrew.
You guys going to go live right after it?
We might be invited onto one of our fellow shows to be live afterwards, but we generally tend to do pre-recording because I like to look good, and Chris makes sure that happens.
And plus, it'll be about probably 3 in the morning over here, so
it'll
be a bit of a
time difference,
bit of a late one to go live. But you'll
be watching, right? You'll be watching till 3 in the morning.
100%.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I myself will be live in the chat when that goes down. Let me tell you, I grew up a fan of professional wrestling, Macho Man Randy Savage and The Undertaker. And as I got older, I went to a lot of shows. I went to 2 WrestleManias. I went to a show live in Detroit and watched the WWE Championship get won by the Big Show. I've been to a number of those events, and I've been to a Schmoedown live as well. And I got to say, the live events, the big events, the end of season events, these pay-per-views, this is where it all comes to a head. You have to be excited about something like this. And I, for one, cannot wait to see how it all caps off for this very first season of the FCL. But, of course, that's all the news that's fit to print for this week. That doesn't mean we're done talking, because we've got 2 great matches to break down. James Shimo versus Brennen Marr. We've got Kofi Outlaw and Andres Gallego in a singles matchup. And we are, of course, going to find out as the matches start that it's going to be a Star Wars #1 contenders match between Shimo and Marr. I would love to give you more of my dulcet tones, but of course, for this section, we always turn it over to the man with all the numbers. He knows what he's talking about way more than I do. Let's pass over for our match breakdowns. Keith Kilduff.
FCL28 kicked off with a number 1 contender fight in the Star Wars division between mystical Brennen Marr, 1-0 coming into this division, against James Shimo, the second player now to play, no, the third player, my apologies, to play across all 3 divisions this year on debut in Star Wars. A big caveat of the number 1 contender match hanging over this, really kind of ramping home this end of season event that we're going towards. And I guess, listen, as we move into round number 1, it ends 6-5 to Brennen. We kind of break down the questions beat by beat. We kicked off in the Phantom Menace with the name of the transport that Boss Nass gives to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan to get to Theed, Bongo being the answer. Shimo misses the second question in planets and locations when Vader tells the Emperor that there are reports of the Rebel fleet massing at what planet. He says Endor, the answer being Sullus. Adam, I'm going to apologize in advance because I'm going to butcher a lot of Star Wars names. Just going to let you know now, so please feel free to correct me.
It's okay. I'm not that guy. I mean, I am. I won't be here.
So then we level up then in the third question in Solo. What is the name of Dryden Voss's yacht that Akira takes control of? First Light being the answer. Brennan getting that incorrect. We're 2 for 2. We then turn into 3 for 3 in The Last Jedi. How does Luke respond to R2-D2 when he shows him the "Help me Obi-Wan" message? That was a cheap move, being the exact quote. Then we move into small screen Star Wars, and this is where the round really turns. So the first question on the field is, which 2 characters have appeared in Clone Wars, Rebels, and The Mandalorian? Brennen Marr, with a repeat, turns out and says R2-D2 and Bo-Katan. Shimo says Ahsoka Tano and Boba Fett, the answer being Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano. Brennan decides to challenge on the basis that R2-D2 had been in all 3 of them. We come back, and then as it transpires that the word female was missing from the question, so the question gets thrown out. And I guess, Adam, if I can come to you, is that fair on the competitors in terms of the question being thrown out, in the sense that they answered as they heard it and as they seen it on screen?
Yeah, I mean, that's I feel so bad for the hosts, because you see that deer in the headlights moment where they don't know if R2-D2 has shown up in whatever, and you just see challenge there, and everybody's just like, So I really all right, maybe they didn't include the word female or whatever, but I also just see behind the scenes people going, I don't know. We can't put in season 2 and scan through it right now to see if that's correct. So just new question. Maybe the female thing was something that was an original draft or whatever. But I also just see the element of them just going, new question. It's just that amount of proficiency, somehow, in the MTS, they have the DVD ready to go. I made a challenge, on a Star Wars match, and I was amazed that they went away and came back, and I was like, oh, they went and watched that scene, So, but the FCL is not going to do that. Yeah. So, yeah, is it based on what they saw on screen? Yeah, I guess so. But I really feel like there's also even though they probably didn't, go, we sent that question out without the word female. That may have been something they meant to do to narrow it down or whatever. But I also just see that sort of we can't, maybe he's right, maybe he's not. New question. It's just easier to just go new question.
And I suppose, Andrew, before we get to the next question, the point here that I want to kind of bring to you is Shimo backs up Brennan's challenge. Surely in the middle of a fight, you're fighting for your life to get into a title fight. This is a terrible move by Shimo.
That's a tough one, because as a Star Wars fan, you want to jam out with your friend and go, hey, that's true. You want to have one of those conversations you have in the video store of hey, did you know so-and-so is in this? So I understand that feeling as well of oh, hey, this is my buddy. We're hanging out talking Star Wars, and you forget the competitor side of it. But that's where you could cover that later and go, look, I knew that as well and whatever, but I just needed to play the moment. So yeah, as a competitor, you should probably. I mean, I've seen people in the MTS, support things that they absolutely know aren't right. There was a challenge with Bateman and the Muppets. After Bateman got the question, now that becomes a bit at that point. You're like, no challenge. Who would ever get the name of a Muppets movie wrong. How dare you? You know, at that point, you just got to play the game, and people know in the chat and go, oh, come on, you know. So there's a lot of levels to it. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe you need to be more of a competitor at that moment, and then also play it up as a character that like I knew that could go one way or the other, but you know, I got to win.
Where do you stand on it, Andrew?
Well, I mean, I do like, as you know, Keith, I do like a good challenge. I like to suggest that people throw them out far more often than they do. Adam, I appreciate you turning to view me as I begin speaking. That's so helpful.
I love this. I've adapted to the format. I do this every time.
You do indeed, Adam. Pleasure to have you on the show. No, I love a good challenge. You know that, Keith. And I've been on the side of question writing. I've been on the side of hosting, and I've got to agree with Adam here. You're just not going to second guess two decent Star Wars players coming at you with a challenge. The only thing I'm going to throw in here, as you know, I am a proponent of getting those points when you can, of playing the best strategic game possible. Making the challenge may have been a mistake because you're at an even keel with your opponent. Neither one has picked up the point as it stands. In a lot of cases, you want to make that challenge to see if you can pull ahead of your opponent. But if it's a new question, as you expect it's going to be, then you're in the same position you were before and could, in fact, fall further behind. This is a case where I may have left my challenge as it doesn't affect the ultimate points outcome of the match. Not really. You're not moving anywhere on your opponent, and just go ahead and move forward with it. I don't know why Shimo jumped in, but I guess he was defensive about it too. And I think the correct call was made in throwing out the question. It's just got to be done. If there was a mistake in the wording of the question, the only fair way to do things is to throw it out and start back over again. I like this call.
And I forgot that Shimo got it wrong too. So they both got it wrong.
Exactly, yeah.
That is shades of when I challenged Molly because she got it wrong and I got it wrong. Or no, we both got it right. And in my match against her, and I still called it a challenge because she didn't say the exact phrase after Sam, Mr. Busybody, was like, no, we're playing exactsies this round. So yeah, that's a while back now. But
well, I'll agree with you on that one, Adam. That may be the one case where you make the challenge. If you're 100% sure that you're both getting the points, go ahead, because for record keeping, you want to have a 17 instead of a 16 when the match is done.
Kept her from a perfect round. That was a strategy there, but at least afterwards, that's what I said it was. But yeah, okay. So that is it. I forgot that Shimo also got that wrong. Yeah. So what's the point of? And then they both get the next one correct, right?
Worst case scenario, you lose your challenge, and best case scenario, you end up in a situation where you still have to make a guess against an opponent who's already shown to be about as good as you at this. So
yeah. Interesting.
So I suppose it goes some way of explaining why Shimo may have wanted Brennan's challenge to go through because he got it wrong himself. Thought, get a challenge, might get a redo, I might be able to get a point for myself here as well. So kind of makes sense.
Well, if so, it speaks to a lot of confidence on his part. Absolutely.
Yeah. It is interesting watching these guys get more confident as they move along in a season. They've the developmental league thing is correct. They've become competitors. Now they're playing all those little angles. They're not just sitting there worrying about what the next question is going to be and do they know it. Now they're fairly confident, and now they're playing the game.
Yeah. Yep.
So listen, anyway, we get a new question anyway in Schmoedown Star Wars. What is the name of the gun for hire played by Bill Burr in The Mandalorian? Mayfield being the answer. We both get that correctly. And they also get to return the Jedi question correct in their opening crawl. What two words are used to describe Jabba the Hutt? File gangster. Shimo plays up a little bit of character in this. And then they both get the quote who said a question incorrect. The question being who said the infamous I got a bad feeling about this line in Rise of Skywalker. They both say Poe Dameron, the answer being Lando Calrissian. And then we finish out round one in Heroes and Villains, including vocal appearances. How many of the 12 films has the character of Anakin / Darth Vader appeared? 9 being the correct answer, which Brennan gets. Shimo, with a repeat, comes up with 8, getting it incorrect. 6-5. Brennan's previous Star Wars round 1 was 8. He was down 2 on this. And Chris, I suppose, with a number 1 contendership on the line, it has to be said that both players seem a little bit edgy here in round 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can see that. I mean, they've both shown they're very good across all different divisions in this league so far. We kind of alluded last week to Brennen, was it a couple of weeks ago, to Brennen maybe needing to focus on a certain division rather he might be spread himself too thin after his last defeat. And he's come back into Star Wars now, and I think this is where he wants to focus anyway. I mean, he did actually leave a comment on our show saying, I didn't decide to compete in all these divisions. But they asked me and I said yes. It's you could see there. Maybe it was a little bit of pressure from them, or maybe it's just two good players against each other, and it just the questions were a bit, took them away a bit. But I just think it was a good challenge by Brennen. He showed his confidence in that, the fact that he knew he was right. We didn't mishear the question. The question was wrong. So there's not much else to say. You're probably right. Maybe it's a bit of nerves because it was a potential title on the line coming up at the end of the season.
So listen, let's move into round 2. Our wheel comes up. It's an interesting mix of categories here. We've Quotes Empire, Small Screen Star Wars, Planets Locations, A New Hope, The Last Jedi, Rogue One, Attack of the Clones, Heroes, and Jedi Order. Brennen decides to defer to Shimo on his first spin, gets Small Screen Star Wars. Decides he doesn't want nothing to do with it and spins again. But he's landed with it, unfortunately. And this is the first time that we're going to see this category play out in round 2 this season. And to his credit, he goes 8 for 8. He knows that the first question, what is the name of Lasat, the member of the Ghost Crew in Rebels? Zeb Aurelius. Adam, have I said that correctly?
As far as I'm concerned, you absolutely said that correctly. Shimo drops. That guy's got 12 names, I guess, and it's always. You always want to flex in Star Wars. It's always fun to flex or whatever. But I just feel bad for the deer in the headlights host because they're like, we had 3 letters here, Z-E-B. And he's like, I believe his name was Jonathan Beauregard Seborelius Orwellio Johnson. You're like, yeah, or Zeb, is that what you're saying, Zeb? Okay, Zeb.
So then he backs that up in the second question. What is the name of the leader of the pirate gang scene in Rebels and Clone Wars? Hado Okaka? I'm going to say it. That's,
Hondo.
Hondo. Thank you very much.
Hondo Ohnaka, come on.
I'm trying my best, Adam. I'm trying my best here, okay? Put it down to the accent.
None of this knowledge was cool when I was growing up. Now that people can get haughty about saying something as dumb as Hondo Ohnaka.
So then we get the third question here. What color is Ahsoka Tano's lightsabers in Mandalorian? Or white? And then Thrawn made his first appearance in what season of Rebels? Season 3. For Brennen, on his first spin, he gets Attack of the Clones. And again, he goes 8 for 8 here. He knows that the name of the bounty hunter who attempted to kill Padme in her sleep was Zam Wessel. He knows that Joel Edgerton plays Owen Lara's stepbrother. There is a quote question here in the opening crawl. It says that there is what in the Senate? There's unrest. And then that who is the Prime Minister of Camino that meets to discuss the creation of the clones, Lama Su. So we're pretty much where we were after round 1. It's 14-13. And Adam, as I said, this is the first time we're seeing Small Screen Star Wars play out in round 2 of an FCL match this year. Are you a little bit disappointed that it hasn't come up a little bit more just to kind of test out its feasibility as a slice moving forward for not only the not only for the FCL, but maybe for the MTS next year?
It's so inevitable that shows up in the Schmoedown next year. I mean, the developmental league is also developing things for the MTS to then use as well. It was a matter of time before Small Screen Star Wars shows up in the MTS. I love that it's come up maybe 3 times now, but I mean it's also sometimes in round 1s as well. Yeah. And that's really cool. That's one of those nice ways that the FCL I think people could not have foreseen how much it would separate itself from the MTS, but in these nice little ways, being the live show or things like that as well. But yeah, the Small Screen Star Wars, it's absolutely going to be in the Schmoedown next year, I would assume. But it's been one of those cool things where they've been able to plant that, and it's fun to watch because it's less obscure trivia technically for most watching audiences. People are like, oh, I just watched The Mandalorian. Yeah, that is Cara Dune or whatever. So it's cool. It plays to the audience and it plays to knowledge that they know, and obviously these guys know it as well. But I was happy it didn't get. I mean, because the movie trivia on Star Wars can get so deep, obviously. Yeah. But I like that you've got hundreds of episodes. You can't go that deep unless you just want to watch people get things wrong. So it's cool that they're sticking with these are what Star Wars questions used to be like back in the day in the MTS. It's like, who plays Han Solo? Like, it's nice to see that. I call Star Wars in the FCL trivia for humans. It's like other people can play along and enjoy it. I can watch and go, I got all these right. I must be great at this. And then I play Thomas Harper, and that's not true.
Yeah.
CB, it's a nice slice to see and play here. Like we're getting a nice spread across all the shows within the category as well.
Yeah, it is, and to the point of it being sort of the questions are they're nicer questions. They're not too deep. That may change because obviously, like I said, the Schmoedown used to be like that. But I suppose the more questions for this category get asked, the more questions have to be written. The question writers are going to have to go deeper at some point just to get some of these. So it's probably going to get more difficult. But for now, it's a nice category. Crossing these shows. So I'd say some of the animated ones will probably be a bit more difficult for some people. But it's like Adam said, the Mandalorian, so recent, people have watched it. It's nice for us audience members. Even though I am a big Star Wars fan, I can never remember, silly details on stuff. But playing along with this game.
What's the name of the probe droid?
Yeah, I have no idea. But
it's J9CS14.
Yeah,
That's my favorite
play. I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't. But it's like I said, it's good to be able to play along. Actually, really feel like, hey, I could answer some of these questions. When it gets to the nitty gritty of it, I probably can't. But it's a nice to think I could for a little while.
Right.
Andrew, ultimately, it's a well played round here from both players. They both held throw. We are where we are from round one, and we kind of there's not really much else really to add to this, is there?
No, it's pretty cut and dry, but I will say in round one, we did talk a little bit about nerves, but I got to say, even though it was pretty clear to me that both these players were nervous about that number one contenders match hanging over their head like a sword of Damocles, both still playing very well. They take the correct spins to get away from things they don't like. They're using repeats. They're taking their time. I don't see any problem with the play going on from either of these players, and I got to agree with you. With Star Wars, small screens coming in, that's a great expansion to this, because the truth of the matter is we know a lot of these Star Wars players in the FCL, they are a little closer to you and me. They are a little closer to people who've just seen the movies once or twice, and they really know them fairly well. But in the MTS and the way the development of that league is going, we know that these are people who've read every expanded series novel, every part of the canon, and they are not going to slow down just because it's small screen. So good that we're getting some practice out of it.
So listen, let's move into round three. Let's wrap up this match. Shimo's 2 in A New Hope. What trio walked down for the medal ceremony? Han, Luke, and Chewbacca. Back to Brennen on his 2. In The Rise of Skywalker, who does Rey believe that she killed with the Force powers? Chewbacca being the answer here. Back to Shimo on his 3. In Return of the Jedi, in the Death Star throne room, what does Vader tell Luke that he is unwise to do? Shimo says resist, the answer being lower your defenses. Then it's all on Shimo's 5. He's got to save the match here. In Planets and Locations, in The Rise of Skywalker, what planet does Kylo retrieve the Sith Wayfinder from? Mustafar. Then it's all on Brennen in his 3. Creatures and aliens. What kind of creatures is Han putting onto his ship in The Force Awakens? Raptars, I believe. Raptars, is that how it's pronounced? And then it's all on the 5. It's going to be decided here. It's going to be decided on the 5, on Brennan's 5, Attack of the Clones. In the beginning of the film, which handmaiden is used as a decoy for Padme and is killed when there is an explosion? Uses a repeat, hits Corday and your winner, and going to the big dance in 3 weeks' time. Brennen Marr, 24-20. And Chris, I suppose Shimo teases in this post-match interview that there's another member of the syndicate joining before the end of the season. But looking at this match in general and looking at its misses, it's quotes that's killed them here. The 3-pointer with the Vader and Luke, and the not knowing Lando in round 1, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the have to watch the movies trivia, and you can always separate the people with the guidebooks and flashcards to quotes. Quotes it's the great equalizer, because it means you have to have watched that movie probably recently, and have taken notes. But I mean, like Star Wars: A New Hope, I actually could probably go from beginning to end and not miss a lot of lines, because that's how many times I've seen that. That's why I love quotes. It really gets down to that. Is that a movie you've just watched a bunch, or is that a movie that you now have to watch to prepare for trivia? I love quoting Star Wars, and I love when lines just pop into my head when I'm training Molly or John Hoey or whatever, and they got a match coming up. It's like, random lines will just pop into my head. Should make 0.5 past light speed. If you're talking about something going fast, thought you said the thing was fast. Watch your mouth, kid, or you'll find yourself floating home. So I end up throwing a lot of quotes out because they just pop into my head when I'm training the other guys. So I love that. That's the great equalizer. You can't flashcard as easily quotes, and you can't pick up the guidebooks and get the quotes.
Where do you find all of this, CB? Where's your head at?
I think, but much like Adam said, like quotes it's a tricky round to get. But I suppose, much like we said about Brennen a few weeks ago, we mentioned it a little bit earlier, I think, as well. James has been competing in 3 divisions. He may be just spreading himself a bit too thin, trying to study for all of them. I think he's shown that he's very capable and very good in all 3. He just needs to, in my opinion, focus on 1 or 2, and then actually knuckle down with them, and we could actually see some decent success from him.
Andrew, I had the pleasure of being on Gold Standard this Tuesday gone. Sorry, just don't mean to. Sorry, I'll pick that up. And Brennen was in the chat afterwards, as he usually is, and he made reference to the fact that he took on board the advice that we gave him after his last match a couple of weeks ago, slowing down, using a repeat, and not jumping the gun. And has to say that it pays off here, especially on the 5-pointer. He probably knew it, but gave himself that extra few seconds to really just be clear of thought and say Corday for the win.
Well, I mean, I thought it was a great match played by both, and I do believe that they might be splitting their attention, as Chris already brought up, in these multiple divisions. It might be hurting them a little bit, but you can't deny the knowledge that both of these guys have out there. And it's good to hear that Brennen Marr is not only a fan of the show. Hey, Brennen, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. And that he's taking our advice to heart. Obviously, we've reached out to a lot of competitors, not directly, but we've provided them with a little bit of insight. And we may not be the wisest in the world, but we do help people win matches. So for those of you out there who have been talking down this show and saying that I don't know what I'm talking about, I do find your lack of faith disturbing. That one's for you, Adam.
Who dares? I get that quote. I understood that reference.
That's right, you did. We're going to keep on bringing it to you here on This Week in the FCL. And if you're like Brennen Marr, a great competitor with a great mind for the game, then just tune in, listen to what we have to say, because we know what we're talking about. You might be the Star Wars #1 contender before too long.
If Brennen wants to impress me, he has to tell me the name of the droid that also dies with the explosion that kills Corday. I'm kidding. I've looked it up. It's impossible to find. It's impossible to find. It's a green droid. I assume they just reused the same astromech from Phantom Menace. So that I do forget that one's name too. But I believe one of those guys had a green protocol droid or green astromech, and I assume they just reused that one, and that's the one that dies. But anyway,
ladies and
that's
gentlemen,
the sort
Adam
of stuff
Witt.
you end up looking up.
Adam Witt debuting in the FCL Star Wars division next season.
Adam, here, I'll give you a question that you can answer. So obviously it's booked now. JC Reifenberg, Brennen Marr going for the belt in 3 weeks' time. Who you got your money on?
Boy, that's a tough. I mean, I have to say, I mean, I've been impressed with JC at times. I've also not been impressed with JC at times. Nothing against JC, but also JC was playing early in this season. I mean, I think he was at the first Star Wars match, I believe. And so we hadn't had any feel of what the questions were going to be like. And I think he had some ring rust as well, and he's definitely shooken that off. But it's interesting. He is fallible. He misses. He does miss, you know, and so it's just because he's got the belt and just because he got some of the ring rust off. I mean, you could say the same about Brennen. So I think it's going to go down to a 5. I'll tell you that. I don't know who's going to win, but I mean, you know, Brennan's got his marching orders. Star Wars is his life. I mean, what do you think he's doing right now? What do you think he turned off to watch this show? You know, JC's got a bar to run. You know, he's got to make appearances. So, I mean, I guarantee Brennen turned off a Star Wars movie to watch this. And as soon as this is done, we'll go back to watching a Star Wars movie. So he's excited about it. I mean, they're both excited about it. But so it's going to be good. Not going to be any laying down. And they both got the gameplay. When's the last time JC played, though?
FCL 17.
Yeah.
17,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So somebody's a little warmer than somebody else. Now, I guarantee JC's probably watching a Star Wars movie right now as well. But that's interesting. He's not been tested as much as Brennen has. And so I think that's great. You put one sort of advantage on one side of the weight and the other, and you got yourself a good match. It's going to come down to the 5, whatever the 5 is. And you know what? Maybe Brennen spins small screen Star Wars and or maybe Brennan's able to take a quotes or small screen Star Wars question that JC wouldn't get. I think that was one of JC's weaknesses as well, was quotes. So, and I don't think, the Sullust line, that shows your quotes. That shows you have Return of the Jedi memorized, and they're not going to slip a lot past the goalie in terms of quotes for at least that movie, and probably the original trilogy, and I'm sure the prequels as well.
So congratulations to Brennen Marr, new #1 contender, moving on to play JC Rivenberg at the big dance at the end of the season, FCL Warfare, and we move on to the main event of FCL26. Kofi Outlaw 2-2 versus Andres Gallego 2-2 also. And I suppose, Adam, if I can come to you first, Andres a little bit, having been part of the dungeon last year, second half of the season. So, what have you made of his career in the FCL so far? And going into this match against Kofi, what were you expecting from him?
He's my favorite FCL player, but again, I'm biased because, he was a dungeon guy. And I think that for his match, I think he might have only had one, maybe he had two, but there was one where I coached him in the dungeon. And it was fun. I think a lot of people were really busy. And so really, it was just basically me and Gallegos. Is it Gallego or Gallegos?
Gallego, I believe it's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, Gallego. Yeah, I've said Gallegos before, and he corrected me, and now I'm like, wait, which one did he correct me on? But so we had a really good training session, and I've run into him a lot as well. Paul Preston will show movies in his backyard, and Gallegos comes over for that. What I've seen this season is, again, the developmental league thing has really helped him. He's gotten better. He was always a good competitor. It's just the MTS is hard. It's so hard. It's just so impossibly hard. What the people you're going up against. I've always said it's the equivalent of being pretty good at softball and going, maybe take a couple fastballs off of Nolan Ryan. It's a whole different game. So it's been really good for him to get up to speed. I was excited because Kofi's been one of the better players all season. Happy they have the same record and that it's even, and it was a very good match. I'm always rooting for Andres, and he's gotten better. But he's so good. He knows what he knows, and when you're doing this competition, you can't walk away from a competition and then just go back to normal life. Like, suddenly you're putting more movies on. You're going, oh, who is in that movie? Or you hear the name of an actress and you're like, oh, what was that movie she was in? I better look that up and look up the release date. I just know that's how Andres lives his days once you're in active competition. And do we want to reveal who won this yet, or do we want to go through?
Yeah, sure. Listen, let's get into round one. So Kofi came into this with a career average this season of 6.5. He comes out of it with 6, so he's down a half a point. Whereas Andres' round one average this season had been 6. He comes out of this with 7, so he's up 1. If we break down question by question, first question here in 2000s, Gal Gadot made her feature debut in what 2009 Justin Lin directed film Fast and Furious. The fourth one, which I think is actually an underrated one of the whole franchise. That's just my own opinion.
Beginning of a second trilogy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So then, second question they both missed here in courtroom drama, legal thriller. What 90s military drama features Kevin Pollak, Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, and Demi Moore? This repeat used by Andres. A Few Good Men being the correct answer. He says All Good Men. Kofi Outlaw says G.I. Jane incorrect. And then Kofi follows this up by missing the third question as well. In famous actresses, what actress is in A Fish Called Wanda, The Fog, and Trading Places? Jamie Lee Curtis being the correct answer. Then they both go 5 for 5 in the last questions here. Roland Emmerich directs 2012. They know that in comedies, the 2010 comedies directed by Todd Phillips, featuring Brad Cooper, Ken Jeong, and Paul Giamatti, The Hangover Part 2. There's a point here that I want to bring up, don't worry. Directors who directed number 23, Falling Down, and Flatliners, Joel Schumacher. They know that Casino was the most recent collab between Scorsese and De Niro, other than The Irishman. And then we round out in horror this 1999 film with supporting performances from Ray Park, Christopher Lee, Ian McDermott, and Christina Ricci, Sleepy Hollow. But I suppose, Chris, the big thing that's pointing out to me is that at the start of the FCL season, we kind of had a fair idea, 60-70% what the round one categories are, but now we really, really don't, and they're really mixing it up week by week, Chris. Yeah,
they are, and it's very exciting, because it was kind of, you'd see every week. I know I'd be like taking notes for the show, and I'm thinking, oh, same categories every question again. It's nice we get into a few more different ones coming in now, and I think it's only natural, the more questions getting asked, just more questions are being written, I suppose, and then more categories there are available for the question askers. People on the desk, then. The people on the desk to ask. There'll be more categories for the people on the desk to ask. It just makes it better for us watching as well.
Andrew, Mr. Challenge, is there an opportunity here for Andres in round one on this comedy's question? In terms of a couple of weeks ago, David Campbell was very quick to say that Zombieland 2 wasn't the correct answer and that it needed to be double tap. And obviously, Kofi says The Hangover 2. Andres gives The Hangover Part 2. Should he have challenged?
I mean, given the context, given everything that happened to him before, you'll have to remind me, Keith, of that challenge that happened to him that was ruled against him. Is that correct?
Yeah, David won the challenge, so he did.
Well, then, you know what? I say go for it. Jump in with both feet, dive into the deep end, and let them know, hey, you did this to me, and that's a precedent. And if you're going to set a precedent in the MTS or the FCL for your challenges, it might get called back to. That being said, you know what I say about the challenges. It's very simple. If you don't make the challenge, you can't win the challenge. Would he have won it? Would it have been a good challenge? Maybe, but it doesn't get thrown out here. And I think that might be politeness. That might be just gamesmanship. Doesn't feel like it was really a miss. Either way, I probably would have thrown the challenge out. As you know, I'm not a big fan of holding on to it because how often are you going to need a challenge late in the match? Not as often as you would think.
Where do you stand on it, Adam?
Well, that might as well use your challenge thing. I used to be a big proponent of that, and then I wasted Ben Bateman's challenge on that Muppet thing as a bit, and then his 5-pointer was completely challengeable in that match because they read the question different the second time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd had to be told to me once we left the stage that somebody came up and goes, they didn't say that. They didn't say this key part of the answer. So, geesh, I don't know. I don't know about throwing your challenge out there because that was Ben Bateman. That was one question before he really needed it, and therefore I was like, all right, yeah, it's round 3. Let's do the Muppet bit. Let's have some fun with that. Now here you have to let me know. So someone said Zombieland 2, but not Zombieland 2 Double Tap, and they still got it right.
So a couple of weeks ago, when Campbell played Andres said Zombieland 2, David said Zombieland Double Tap, and David challenged on the basis that the actual title of the film is Zombieland Double Tap. So I'm wondering,
did he win?
He did win. He got that challenge. So I'm wondering, was there a missed opportunity by Andres here by not challenging The Hangover 2 as opposed to the official title being Part 2?
Yeah, no. Losing the word part is way different than getting the entire name of the movie wrong. Zombieland Double Tap is the name of that movie. Zombieland 2 is not the name of the movie. If it was Zombieland 2 Double Tap, maybe, but it's Zombieland Double Tap. So, and it's if you say Hangover Part 2, well, it's The Hangover Part 2, but still, that's benefit of the doubt. That's all benefit of the doubt there. But all of those variations are the name of that movie. Zombieland 2 is not the name of that movie. So that's where and that's actually a really good challenge. I haven't watched that match yet.
So listen, let's move into round 2 here. Our wheel comes up. We've got Scorsese, horror, 2010s, movie release dates, musicians in film, rom-coms, Bruce Willis, franchises, Jodie Foster, Robert Redford, and spinners and opponents. Kofi is deferred to and gets spinners on his first spin and decides to take franchises and goes 8 for 8, holds his throw here. He knows that there's 5 movies in the Die Hard franchise. He knows that Renner played Aaron Cross in The Bourne Legacy, Jay and Silent Bob appear in Scream 3, and that there was Sean Connery appeared in 2 Highlander franchise movies. Andres on his spin gets horror first up and decides to take it also, and he also goes 8 for 8 here. Great. He knows that Wes Craven directed 2 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. He knows that this 2014 film with Mika Monroe as a character called Jay Height is a 19-year-old college student pursued by a supernatural entity after a sexual encounter. It Follows being the answer to this, and then finishes up by knowing the 05 werewolf body comedy directed by Wes Craven being Cursed, and gets this John Carpenter 2001 sci-fi horror film featuring Ice Cube and Jason Statham, Ghost of Mars. So again, much like this first round, we're exactly where we are. We're 14-15, still only that point in, and this is the first time, Andrew, that franchises come into play as a new category. And ultimately, much like the first match, both players just holding throw 8 for 8, and we keep going.
Yeah, no, we've
Good
got two
matchup.
players coming into this round who know that what they have to do is they have to put some points up. And you start off with a spinner's choice. So of course, you got to be happy about that, but you got to perform. Well, he does, knocks it out of the park 8 for 8. And now the answering is on his opponent, and he comes back in and he has to answer back the same if he wants to stay close. Can't pull ahead now, can't get the lead, but you can come within one, and he does exactly that. I mean, you can't ask for a better second round than this. And kudos, by the way, PLD, congratulations. Like, you wrote this whole match for me, every question about a movie that I love. Well done. I very much am enjoying what both these guys are doing. And clearly, neither one of these guys, despite the fact that they're at 500 records, despite the fact they're coming in against very strong competition, neither one really letting it beat them up, going back on themselves, playing a solid and straightforward game. And as much as I like a challenge, as much as I like a good promo where you cut on somebody, in the end, it all comes down to trivia. And that's what we're getting from both these guys, is straightforward, simple, answer the questions, know the questions, show up, show off, and show out moving into round 3, I guess.
Adam, in Andres' last match that we kind of referenced, it was the first time that he had done a perfect round 2 and getting 4 for 4, and he backs it up here again. I'm just wondering, that confidence of doing a thing before, surely that kind of helps them when you're back in the pocket again the second time around.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I coach a lot, or preach a lot, I guess, when in the dungeon, is that going back to that moment where you won, where you got this thing, and replaying that in your head. I mean, that's an old coaching thing from like the Olympics, that people will have the bobsled team walk the track, before they walk the track, so that you can envision every part of that track. I think it's the same thing for this. It's like, remember that time, coaching Dan Murrell, like, remember that moment when they said, "And your winner," like, play that over when you're going into this round, and I'll remind him that, like, play that moment over. Don't forget, "And your winner." Like, what did it feel like to have that make that victory inevitable? So I assume he's doing the same thing here, which is like, because he said, horror, and I thought he was a pretty big horror fan, so maybe he was playing there a little bit like, gee, I guess I don't know horror very well, but I guess I'll go for it, which would be good too. I'd like, if he did that's good too. And then aces it with some dumb movies too. Ghost of Mars. I mean, I've always said it's a very dumb thing we do here in movie trivia, and look no further than going, Ghost of Mars, yes. There's no victory in Ghost of Mars. Yeah, you can pretend there is, but yeah.
I mean, it probably bought Natasha Henstridge a real nice couch.
Sure, right. I bet it did.
CB, through all of this, though, we are starting to see signs of old Kofi from the first half of the year coming back.
Hold on, I'm sorry. Why wasn't Natasha Henstridge? Why isn't she the most famous actress right now? Like, why isn't she? Why don't we have movies where, like, the great grande dame of cinema, Natasha? She came out of the gate so strong, and it was just like, she's going to be in movies forever. We are going to be, like when Demi Moore shows up in a movie again, you're like, oh, Demi Moore hasn't been in movies in a while, but this great actress that we've known for all these years. Why isn't that Natasha Henstridge? I do not get that career just stopped. Doesn't make any sense. Why is she in Ghost of Mars? Anyway, Ice Cube's still in movies, but Natasha Henstridge isn't? Okay.
Yeah.
So CB Kofi, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
So continue.
I completely forgot what the question was now. No, I'm just thinking about why she's not in any more movies. He started strong, and I think he's alluded to it himself. He maybe started leaning into the old character side of things a little bit, and it was kind of taken over the actual just points of answering the questions in the last couple of matches. Where against it was Harley. Who was Harley the last? No, Alex.
No,
Harley.
Alex. Yeah,
obviously, he had Harley in the title match, and he had Alex, and he got the old hood up, and he was doing the whole character thing, and he seems to have, like he kind of said in the post match, peeled it back and just let's just get on, play the game, focus, and that seems to be what we're doing. He's doing very well.
Yeah, when my first match with Paul Preston, we were playing full-on characters, and we went into that match, and I was like, okay, so we got to keep playing these characters, and it really threw off my trivia game. I had some really dumb misses, and I think Kofi's learned that lesson of, like, you could do your character in the promo, you can do your character when you show up, but as soon as they say question number 1, it's like, no characters. You have
Yeah.
got to be Mr. Trivia. And then as soon as it's over, whether you win or lose, back into character time. So yeah, that's and I've seen him get in his head as well. I think he succeeded more than he expected himself to. I've seen that in the MTS as well, where you're like, oh my god, I just pulled that match out. Well, I just pulled that match out, and then you get to a point where you're like, maybe I shouldn't be here. I feel like Kofi gets into his head a little bit, and I think dropping the character is probably a good way to just maintain ultra focus.
So listen, let's wrap up this match in round 3 on Kofi's 2 and scores and soundtracks. What musical artist songs are the focus of the film Blinded by the Light? Kofi says Oreo Speedwagon, the correct answer being Bruce Springsteen. Gets his 3-pointer.
Big difference between those two.
It's a massive difference.
Dockin? Is it Dockin?
Actually, Adam, is that a bad miss, or if you don't know Springsteen's music, then
I mean, I do not hold it against Kofi for not seeing that movie. The movie kind of came and went, and if you were Springsteen fans, were like, "Oh, there's this great movie out there." I'm not a huge Springsteen fan, and I will probably never watch that movie. But just REO Speedwagon. It's just funny. Like I kind of want to see a whole movie dedicated to the music of REO Speedwagon.
So listen, he gets his 3-pointer correct in the category of Spike Lee. Where does Spike Lee's character work in Do the Right Thing in a Pizza Parlor? And then it's all on Andres.
Hold on. Blinded by the Light. What band does that song though? I mean, he's not
that's
far
Manfred
off.
Mann and the Earth Band. I believe.
Okay. Well, I don't expect him to say that. Is that the music of Manfred Mann? Although that makes so much more sense. Is there a Blinded by the Light song by Springsteen?
He does it with the E Street Band.
Is it a cover of Manfred Mann?
Probably.
That I couldn't answer. I would imagine so, yeah.
Good job on the Manfred Mann. That was, aces. Holy crap! You just pulled that right out.
I spent a lot of my early adult years working in bars where I had to play music. So
well, then let me know. What does wrapped up like a deuce mean?
It's revved up like a deuce.
Revved up. Oh, well, everybody thinks it's wrapped up like a douche. We know that. Right?
I've heard all the different interpretations of that particular one. My favorite has always been Elton John with "Don't Let Your Sun Go Down on Me." But
okay, we're going to get this back on track now. Let's get 3 more questions.
There's the bathroom on the right.
Gallagher's 2 in biopics. Who directed Sam Rockwell in Confessions of a Dangerous Mind? He says Roger Avery, the answer being George Clooney. In his 3 in Matt and Ben, what MCU actor appears as Harry Mitchell in the Adjustment Bureau? He hits a repeat, and he says J.K. Simmons, the answer being Anthony Mackie. And then it's all on his 5 in the category of Denzel. What 93 romantic comedy based on a Shakespeare play is directed by Kenneth Branagh and stars him as Don Pedro, the Prince of Aragon? Much Ado About Nothing being the correct answer. He says Hamlet, unfortunately, and your winner, 17-15, Kofi Outlaw. And Adam, that 5-pointer there, is that a bad miss from Andres' point of view, considering that we're getting the year, the category, we're getting it's based on a Shakespeare play, we're getting a director, or is it just that if you don't know, now you know when I'm told?
I'm not going to hold it against Andres for not being almost 50 and having worked in a movie theater in 1993, and there's no trivia from 93 that I could miss. Yeah, I mean, that's a deep cut, man. That's a 5. It's and you know what? He's not far off because I think 92 was Mel Gibson's Hamlet, or 91. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he's as far as Shakespeare adaptations, he says a really close cousin to Much Ado About Nothing. But that's just one I know because I'm old and I worked in a movie theater in 1983, so I can't hold that against him at all. That's a tough one. Yeah, and I even forgot that who was the actor they said was in it? It's not Denzel, right? No, Denzel was questioned before.
Denzel was the category, yeah.
And I even forgot that. At first I was like, Denzel's in but I was like, 93, there's only one Shakespeare movie I can think of from 93 when I worked in the movie theaters, and that's Much Ado About Nothing. But I forgot that Denzel was in that. They didn't mention Keanu, but yeah.
Andrew, I know I do give Andres a bit of a hard time every now and again. I say that he gives you a chance, he gives you an opening, but I'm starting to think that the issue with him is more so that he gives these forced errors at the wrong time. It's not so much that the knowledge isn't there. Like it's all there. He just needs to glue it all together, I think. And hopefully everything that he's taken on board in these 5 matches, he really comes back hard in season 2.
Well, I mean, certainly, definitely, he's going to want to come back as strong as he possibly can. He doesn't have a bad record. He's performed well in all of his matches. And I think what it comes down to is something that kind of weaves between things we've heard already from Adam, who clearly has some experience dealing with players who are in this situation, that we've heard from ourselves before. And it's really about a level of balance. That's what I think is occasionally missing with him is you want to be focused on the matchup, but you don't want to be so into it that you make a mistake. As an example, and I know we had a little chat about this before the show started, both Adam and myself were listening to round 3, and we both heard one of the questions and missed part of it and thought that there was potentially a challenge there. I'll go ahead and got people who are listening, in case you're wondering, we both thought that perhaps you could challenge the Adjustment Bureau question because John Slattery is also in those films.
Right.
He's an MCU actor. Keith, you, of course, listened much more closely than the two of us and pointed out that they did say the name of the character in the question. So we would have been wrong there.
Yeah.
But
we all know the name of that character, that famous character's name. I mean, we know that that's not John Slattery. No. John Slattery plays Ron Johnson. They asked about Earl Campbell or whatever.
It's Canadian Thanksgiving is coming up shortly, and I will definitely be putting on the Adjustment Bureau as a tradition ever since it came out, for sure. And then we'll be following that up with Species, which we've been watching ever since 1995 when that first aired. I'm with you all the way, Adam, on that.
What happened to her?
Exactly. So, no, I think it's a Zen level that you have to find yourself in, where there's just enough focus on the match that you can pay attention to the questions, keep your strategy in mind, and see what your opponent's doing, but not where you're so invested that you let an answer screw you up, that you get too deep into something and tie yourself into a knot and then lose the questions afterwards, or make a mistake and start beating yourself up over it. And I think that's what we're seeing as well, is finding that balance a little bit more. So comfortability, perhaps, settle in, play the game, and play it your way. Absolutely. But I think we can all agree that if we've learned one thing from this match, it's whatever happened to Natasha Henstridge.
What happened to her? Come on, she should have been in everything.
Asking the hard question.
I mean, she looks like a classic, like Hollywood, like a Hitchcock blonde, like
very handsome woman.
Amazing looking woman. Yeah, it's a shame. It's crazy. And her first movie was with Ben Kingsley and those other guys in that movie, you know.
CB, I suppose if we talk about Kofi for a second here, he moves into the 3-win club, and he is one of 5 competitors now that have 3 or more wins in the division. But he's probably on the outside looking in terms of, I'd say Alex is ahead of him, I'd say Maxwell is ahead of him, Montano and Fishburne. But ultimately, he's going to finish the season probably 3-2, and again, he's setting himself up for a big season 2 as well.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I can't see him, like I said, now with only a few weeks left to go in the season, getting any more of a push to try and get anywhere near, obviously, a title match with the Flouse now. For me, as I've said, over a few weeks, Fishburne at 4-0, he's the only person that should be facing the Flouse in the title match, in my opinion. And obviously then with Robert Montano, Maxwell and Alex just behind them. Obviously, Alex also being 3-0 as well as Montano. Kofi, I'd put him just after that. You know, probably, to be fair, similar sort of place that you would find the Vanessa Fitzsimmons and even James Shimo in the singles division at the minute, sort of thing. Shimo maybe just a step below, but I just think Kofi's just in that spot on his own really at the minute with Vanessa. Yeah, not quite there for a title match again, but definitely there for a good season next season. And
if you're going to lose to someone, losing to Kofi, I mean, that's like, you know, I mean, that looks good on Andres because he already played, you know, Kofi already played for the belt. And so, you know, if you're going to lose to anybody, you know, and it's, of course, it's a natural that Kofi's going to go for the belt again. That's, you know, the Schmoedown in general finds its own plot line. You can't push it in one way or another. It's like, it was kind of written that Kofi would end up facing Flouse for that belt, you know?
So congratulations to Kofi Outlaw, commiserations to Andres. And for the first time in a few weeks, let's look forward to what's going to happen next week in the FCL.
As said earlier in the show, the beef between David Campbell and the Flying Cow is finally coming to a head. Obviously, with Campbell asking Brad Gilmore to reinstate the Cow into the singles division. Obviously, it was a right that he lost in his debut match against Brennen Marr. Well, good for us. Brad obliged. And next week in the FCL, we do have David Campbell taking on the Flying Cow. Campbell's challenge, I think, boils down to him feeling that the cow disrespected his faction, the European invasion, after he, as Campbell did say, the cow somehow eked out a win over Cat the Mad. Adam, I know you have dabbled in a couple of divisions within the MTS with Op Teams and Star Wars. And since his opening match with Brennen Marr, the Flying Cow has been focused, obviously, solely on the Inner Geekdom division and doing okay. But obviously, you never really know for sure. But you have to think David Campbell mixed, although it is a mixed singles record, he must be the favourite heading into this match. Obviously, with it being the arena that he's competed in for the entire season.
We've seen the cow play singles though, right?
I think it was the first match of the season he had, which he lost to Brennen.
Right. Yeah, and he's rougher in that, and David is warmed up in that. So, I would say we got David Campbell is the favorite here, but the winner here, of course, would be the audience with Flying Cow and David Campbell playing each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And they are both actually, like David, obviously, he's from, he's this side of the world, so he's always been a favourite of mine and of the show, really, from the beginning. So
he's a foundational member of the FCL,
Yeah, exactly. And we always root for him here. Keith, as someone like myself, like I just mentioned, from over this side of the world, do you see the Flying Cow pulling this one out of the bag and getting another one over the faction, or are our fellow Europeans going to be chowing down on some prime cut sirloin steak?
I think that this is actually when you say it out loud and you kind of think, oh, you think Campbell should win this, but the cow dabbling in IG, it almost makes him a little bit more dangerous now because he's got these other categories that he could maybe pull in, And I know, listen, Campbell, we has a love for Wizarding World, so you're kind of thinking this is going to be like Wizarding World versus Star Trek, or maybe Disney, or the round 2 is going to be very, very curious to see how this goes. I don't think this is as straightforward as a Campbell win, but it's going to be exciting one way or another.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, and Andrew, obviously you're the person on this show that loves all the gameplay, the strategical aspects of each of these matches. What are you looking for from both these two competitors next week?
Well, I mean, I think this is going to be a great matchup between both guys. I'm a big fan of anybody who self-identifies as Sinister, so gotta love the Flying Cow coming into this one as part of the Sinister Syndicate. European Invasion is firing back, though. They've got strong competitors, David Campbell being obviously a big name amongst that little group of people. He's coming in. He is the dynasty. He is an incredible player. And David Campbell, if he's anything, he is a player who can get, as we already talked about with some other players today, maybe a little inside his own head when things don't go his way. I think that's the biggest hurdle for David Campbell will be not to let any mistakes get at him, not to let them chew him up inside and start questioning himself, doubting himself. As far as the Flying Cow goes, this is going to be about straight knowledge against David Campbell. I don't think Flying Cow is the kind of player who's going to get rattled. He's the kind of guy who can stay in character, who can give you a lot of a show while still focusing on the questions. So for Flying Cow, it's going to be very straightforward. Answer the questions, take the time when you need it, and don't let David Campbell run the match. Don't let him dictate the tone of it. Use your own time, use your JTEs just to slow things down if you have to, but make sure that you're playing your game. If that happens, I think the Flying Cow could come out with the victory. But as always, Campbell, a fearsome competitor and not to be overlooked. If he plays at his best, I would fall over onto the other side of Chris Barnes' famous fence and say David Campbell would be taking the win here.
But I think you make a good point that David Campbell is easily thrown off his game as well. And you got a character like the Cow. If I were coaching the Cow, I'd be like, get in there and annoy that guy.
Absolutely.
Do all your stupid cow jokes. Get him so upset that he misses an easy one. And that might be the edge you need to get to the fives,
Don't disagree at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously at the time of recording, that's all we know for next week in the FCL. So I'm going to hand it back to Andrew. And do you want to take us out?
Absolutely, I will. First and foremost, before I get us on out of here, you know what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to tell you a few things about the show and introduce everybody once again who's been on the panel today. Starting off, of course, with our very own stats man, Keith. It's been great, as always, having you break it all down like only you can do. Tell people where they can find you online.
Twitter and Instagram at Keekleduff89, and check out the Opening Pair Network on YouTube and podcast form.
All right, he's the brains behind This Week in the FCL, and he's never, ever, ever waited too long to make a pick on who's going to win a matchup. That's right. It's the decider, Chris Barnes. Where can people find you online?
You can just follow me on Twitter at ChrisBarnes_UK and Instagram at The Movie Barnes. And that's pretty much it. I may have something cooking for this channel for myself, but I'm going to hold on to that for a little while.
Ooh, exciting news potentially coming down the pike. I am the Elk. You can find me online at KelkAndrew. That's KELK Andrew on Twitter. And I'm, of course, here every week on This Week in the FCL. You can also check out some of my previous work on the movie Trivia Face-Off. That's right. I ran a whole movie trivia league. Go ahead and check that one out and see if you like that as well. If you like movie trivia, you might. But last and certainly not least, definitely first in our minds and our hearts, he is our special guest for the day. He is one of the only people in the world other than Mario Kanopik who can tell Dan Murrell what to do, and he certainly lives up to his last name. He is a witty one. It's Adam Witt. Adam, thank you again for joining us, and where can everybody check you out?
Oh, well, if you go to @TheMovieGuys, search for that anywhere, you'll find whatever Paul and I are doing. We do a show on Mondays at 3 p.m. our time. God knows what time it is your time. Somehow 12 hours earlier, I think. But we do a live show on Monday called Movie Nonsense. And, of course, our flagship show, if you look for on any podcast app, is the Ford Fiesta, where we cover every single Harrison Ford movie in a row. We just released Hanover Street, which is his second movie after Star Wars, or third movie after. He did like 4 movies in between Star Wars and Empire. So we're in that phase right now. And if you go back into our archive, it's really fun to watch all these Harrison Ford movies that 2 gigantic Harrison Ford movie fans who met because of a Harrison Ford reference in a show, that we would be discovering all of this Harrison Ford, and we keep discovering new points and shouts and all the classic the very first person he ever punched on screen was Jack Lemmon. We discovered that in his second movie out of the gate. The guy that's going to get famous for punching people, the fact that it was Jack Lemmon. He's punched Barbara Bach. He in Frisco Kid, which is coming out next week, he punches Gene Wilder. And movie guy Stephen Lewis pointed out, as of Frisco Kid, he has punched one half of the producers and one half of the Odd Couple. So these are the interesting things that come up on the Ford Fiesta. There he is, right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yep.
Harrison Ford. Wonderful. Sounds like a lot of fun. I'm certainly going to be checking that out, folks. You should check that out as well. Check out Adam everywhere. He is always entertaining, and it's been wonderful having you here on the show with us,
Good
Adam.
to be here.
And as he mentioned, podcasts, I may as well say it. We are in podcast form on This Week in the FCL. You may already be listening to it, but if not, if you're on YouTube, hey, go ahead, do that engagement nonsense, hit that thumbs up or leave a comment. You know that helps us out. And listen to us on podcasts, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. All those places, we are available there. Thank you as well for joining us, fans. Of course, you are the reason we do all of this. Every time you join us, we have a great time. We're always breaking down all the action, telling you everything that's going on in the FCL, and we'll be back next week to do it once again as we discuss everything that happens next week on This Week in the FCL.